Imagine this. A brutal crime. A victim whose life was stolen. A devastated family demanding justice. The police work fast, combing through the scene, gathering evidence, searching for the truth. Then, a breakthrough. DNA is found. Fingerprints match. The suspect is arrested. The courtroom is packed, the jury listens, and the prosecution presents the most powerful weapon in their arsenal, forensic science. But years later, something unimaginable happens. New evidence emerges. A mistake is uncovered. The science was wrong. The suspect, no, the convicted murderer, walks free. Now, stop and ask yourself, how often does this happen? How many innocent people have spent years, decades, locked in a cage for crimes they never committed? How many real criminals have walked free because forensic science failed? We want to believe in the power of science. We trust the experts in white lab coats, the forensic analysts who testify under oath, the DNA matches that seem undeniable. But what if I told you that forensic science is not as perfect as TV shows make it seem? That the very methods used to determine guilt or innocence, fingerprint analysis, blood spatter interpretation, bite mark comparisons, are not as foolproof as we've been led to believe? Let's take a real case. One that shook the world. Cameron Todd Willingham. In 1991, a tragic fire ripped through his home in Texas. His 3 young daughters didn't make it out. Investigators concluded it was arson. They said burn patterns in the house were proof that an accelerant was used. The jury believed the science, and Willingham was sentenced to death. Years later, independent experts re-examined the evidence. What they found was chilling. The original forensic analysis was completely flawed. The so-called arson indicators were actually just normal burn patterns. There was zero proof of arson. But by the time the truth came out, it was too late. Willingham had already been executed. Now, let me ask you this. If forensic science is so reliable, why do cases like this keep happening? How many more people are sitting in prison cells right now, convicted by forensic evidence that might not even be accurate? And perhaps even more terrifying, how many real criminals are walking free because forensic science got it wrong? Think about that. We've all seen forensic science in movies and crime shows. The glowing DNA strands, the high-tech fingerprint scans, the lab tech who solves a murder in under an hour. It's clean, precise, undeniable. But reality? Reality is messy. Science can be flawed. Experts can be wrong. So, the real question is, can we really trust forensic science? Let me know what you think in the comments. And stick around, because what we're about to uncover might change the way you see justice forever. Forensic science is supposed to be the backbone of modern justice, a tool that separates the guilty from the innocent with cold, hard facts. But here's the truth, not all forensic science is actually science. Some of it? It's pure guesswork. Think about the techniques that have been used in courtrooms for decades: bite mark analysis, hair comparison, lie detector tests. They sound scientific, they look convincing, and juries eat them up. But how reliable are they, really? Let's start with bite mark analysis. It's been used to convict countless people. The idea is simple. When someone bites another person, their teeth leave a unique pattern, like a fingerprint. But here's the problem, that's not how human skin works. Skin stretches, swells, and distorts. The same bite can look completely different depending on lighting, swelling, and even the way a photo is taken. Don't believe it? A study asked forensic dentists to analyze the same set of bite marks and match them to the right person. Guess what? They couldn't agree. Some experts picked one person, others picked someone completely different. The results were all over the place. And yet, people have been sent to prison for life based on bite mark evidence. Then there's hair comparison. For decades, forensic analysts claimed they could match a hair found at a crime scene to a suspect with near certainty. But modern DNA testing proved otherwise. In 2015, the FBI admitted that nearly every case involving hair comparison from 1980 to 2000 contained serious errors. That means hundreds, if not thousands, of people were convicted on faulty science. And don't even get me started on lie detectors. Hollywood makes them look foolproof, like they can tell the truth from lies with a simple graph. But polygraph tests don't actually measure truthfulness. They measure stress. So if you're nervous, even if you're completely innocent, you might fail. And if you're a sociopath who feels no guilt, you might pass with flying colors. Yet, how many people have lost their freedom because a machine said they were lying? Let's talk about real lives ruined by bad forensics. The Innocence Project has helped exonerate hundreds of wrongfully convicted people. The stories are shocking. Imagine spending 20, 30, even 40 years behind bars for a crime you didn't commit, all because of bad science. Take Cameron Todd Willingham, a name that should haunt the American justice system forever. Willingham was convicted of arson and murder in 1991. Investigators claimed the burn marks and patterns in his house were clear evidence of arson. They said it was undeniable, scientific proof. The jury believed them, and Willingham was sentenced to death. But years later, independent fire experts looked at the same evidence. And what did they find? No proof of arson. The science used against him was completely flawed. Those burn marks? They were caused by natural fire behavior, not gasoline. But by the time the truth came out, he was already dead. Texas executed a man based on junk science. And this isn't just one case. It happens more than you think. Which brings us to the biggest question of all: how does junk science even make it into courtrooms? Here's how: lack of standardization. Unlike DNA testing, which is actually reliable, many forensic methods have no uniform standards. One expert might say a fingerprint is a match, while another says it's not. One forensic analyst might claim a hair sample proves guilt, while another completely disagrees. And here's the scariest part: prosecutors often cherry-pick the experts who will help their case. That means a scientist with outdated or flawed methods might be given the final say on someone's guilt or innocence. Think about that for a second. A man's fate, his entire life, could be decided by a flawed forensic technique and an expert who gets it wrong. And yet, time and time again, we see these same forensic techniques used in courtrooms, presented as fact, believed by juries, and resulting in life-changing sentences. So I ask you again, can we really trust forensic science? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this is shocking to you, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started. Now, let's flip the script. We've seen how bad forensic science can put innocent people behind bars, but what about the real criminals? The ones who actually committed the crimes? How many of them have walked free because of forensic failures? Let's talk about DNA contamination. DNA is supposed to be the gold standard of forensic science, the one thing that never lies. But here's what they don't tell you, even DNA can be wrong. Imagine this. A brutal crime happens. The police swab the crime scene, send the evidence to the lab, and run the DNA. And boom, they get a hit. The database pulls up a suspect's name. It's supposed to be a slam-dunk case, right? Wrong. Because what if that DNA got there by accident? It's happened before. Take the case of Lucas Anderson. In 2012, Anderson was arrested for the murder of a millionaire in California. His DNA was found on the victim's fingernails. Open and shut case, right? The prosecution was ready to send him away for life. Except for one little detail. At the exact moment of the murder, Anderson was in a hospital bed, hooked up to oxygen, completely unconscious. He had an alibi that couldn't be disputed. So how did his DNA end up at the crime scene? Cross-contamination. A paramedic who treated Anderson earlier that day had also responded to the murder scene. The same gloves, the same equipment. A tiny trace of Anderson's DNA transferred from the paramedic's gear onto the victim. And that nearly sent an innocent man to prison for life. Now, think about it. If forensic evidence can accidentally place an innocent person at a crime scene, how many real criminals have avoided getting caught because of mix-ups like this? But DNA contamination isn't the only problem. There are cases where police put too much faith in forensic science and ignore the real evidence that's right in front of them. Let's talk about the Phantom of Heilbronn. For over 16 years, European police hunted a mysterious female serial killer. Her DNA had been found at crime scenes across multiple countries. She had been linked to murders, burglaries, even police killings. Detectives were baffled. How could one woman be so elusive, so untouchable, so impossible to find? The case became legendary. The Phantom was feared. No one knew who she was or what she looked like. She seemed to strike at random and then disappear without a trace. Then, in 2009, investigators made a shocking discovery. The Phantom of Heilbronn? She never existed. The DNA came from a factory worker who had packaged the cotton swabs used in forensic testing. Her DNA was on the swabs before they were ever used at a crime scene. Think about that. For 16 years, police were chasing a ghost, all because of contaminated forensic evidence. And while they wasted time on a killer who never existed, how many real criminals slipped through the cracks? How many actual murderers, thieves, and violent offenders got to keep walking free because forensic science pointed in the wrong direction? And this brings us to one of the biggest problems with forensic evidence. The way the justice system misuses it. You see, forensic science should be a tool, one piece of the puzzle. But too often, it's treated like the only thing that matters. Judges, juries, and even prosecutors place blind trust in forensic evidence. They hear the words DNA match or forensic analysis and assume it's 100% fact. This is called the CSI effect. Thanks to TV shows like CSI, NCIS, and Law and Order, people believe that forensic science is flawless. That every crime can be solved with a simple DNA test. That experts always know what they're talking about. But reality is so much messier. In real life, forensic science is not always conclusive. It can be wrong, misinterpreted, or even manipulated to fit a narrative. A defense attorney once said, "If you have forensic evidence, you don't need a confession." And if you have a confession, you don't need forensic evidence. But if you have neither, you make the forensic evidence say whatever you want. And that's the scary part. How often is forensic evidence twisted, manipulated, or taken at face value without question? How many criminals have been set free because of bad forensic science? How many innocent people have been locked away while the real guilty parties remain on the streets? The system is broken. And if that worries you, it should. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to uncover more shocking truths, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started. So now we know, the system is broken. Forensic science has failed both the innocent and the guilty. It has locked away people who never committed a crime and let real criminals walk free. But here's the big question, can we fix it? Because if we don't, how many more innocent lives will be destroyed? How many more guilty people will escape justice simply because forensic science got it wrong? It's time to talk about solutions. Right now, forensic science is treated like absolute truth in the courtroom. A forensic expert takes the stand, tells the jury their findings, and that's it, the evidence is taken at face value. But here's the scary part, there's no universal standard for forensic science. One expert might say a fingerprint is a perfect match. Another might say it's inconclusive. A prosecutor might use bite mark analysis as solid proof, while a scientist in another state calls it junk science. How is that justice? Forensic evidence should never be the sole reason someone is convicted. There need to be stricter standards for what forensic methods are allowed in court. Think about it, would you want your fate decided by faulty science? Would you trust a method that hasn't even been proven accurate? The courts need to ban unreliable forensic techniques and only use methods that have been rigorously tested, peer-reviewed, and proven to work. Because if the wrong evidence can put the wrong person in prison, how can we trust the system at all? Here's something most people don't know, not all forensic techniques are actually scientific. A lot of them were created decades ago, before modern research, before real testing, before science could actually confirm if they worked. Take bite mark analysis. For years, forensic experts testified that bite marks on a victim could perfectly match a suspect's teeth. Sounds convincing, right? Except for one problem. It's not true. Studies have proven that human skin is too elastic to create an exact bite impression. Two different forensic experts can look at the same bite mark and come to opposite conclusions. That's not science. That's guesswork. And bite mark analysis isn't the only method with serious flaws. Lie detectors. Blood spatter analysis. Hair comparison. These techniques aren't based on real science, but they've been used for decades to convict people. How many lives have been ruined by faulty forensic techniques? That's why we need independent reviews of forensic methods. Every single forensic technique should be tested by scientists, not police departments, not prosecutors, but real, unbiased experts. If a method doesn't hold up under strict scientific review, it shouldn't be allowed in court. Because forensic science shouldn't be about getting a conviction. It should be about getting the truth. Now here's where it gets really serious. If forensic science has sent innocent people to prison, then shouldn't we be going back and fixing those mistakes? Right now, there are hundreds, maybe even thousands, of people sitting in prison for crimes they didn't commit. Why? Because their cases were built on bad forensic evidence. Because they were convicted before DNA testing was advanced. Because they were found guilty based on bite marks, hair comparisons, and junk science that we now know doesn't hold up. Think about the Cameron Todd Willingham case. He was executed in 2004 for setting a fire that killed his children. The forensic evidence against him? A fire investigator claimed the burn patterns in his house proved arson. But years later, actual fire experts reviewed the case. And guess what? The arson evidence wasn't real. The fire was an accident. An innocent man was executed because forensic science failed him. How many more people are still in prison for the same reason? We need a full review of every case built on bad forensic science. If someone was convicted based on a forensic method that has since been debunked, their case should be reopened, re-examined, and reconsidered. Because if we know a method is flawed, but we still let people rot in prison because of it, what does that say about our justice system? Now, here's the most important part. This isn't just a problem for lawyers and scientists. It's a problem that affects everyone. And if we don't push for change, nothing will ever get better. So what can you do? First, support justice reform groups. Organizations like the Innocence Project are fighting to free the wrongly convicted and fix the flaws in forensic science. They need support, funding, and awareness. Second, spread the truth. Most people still believe forensic science is flawless. They trust the system without question. But now you know the truth. So share this video. Tell people about wrongful convictions. Make people aware that forensic science isn't always reliable. Because the more people know, the harder it is for the system to keep making the same mistakes. And finally, never stop questioning. Next time you hear about a case that seems too perfect, where the evidence magically points to one suspect, ask yourself, what if the forensic science is wrong? Because in a system built on trust, what happens when the science can't be trusted? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe forensic science needs serious reform? Have you heard of any cases where bad forensics led to wrongful convictions? Let's talk about it. And if you want to keep uncovering the hidden flaws in the justice system, make sure to subscribe, because this is just the beginning. Now that you know the terrifying truth about forensic science, what do you do with it? Because here's the thing, this could happen to anyone. One day, you're living your normal life. The next, you're sitting in an interrogation room because some forensic expert says your DNA was found at a crime scene you've never been to. What would you do? Would you trust the system to get it right? Would you assume forensic science is too advanced to make mistakes? Or would you fight back, because now you know how often forensic evidence is wrong? Every day, people hear forensic expert testimony in court and take it as absolute fact. But after everything we've seen, we have to ask, should we? We've exposed fake science, wrongful convictions, and forensic failures that let criminals walk free. We've seen how flawed the system really is. So the next time you hear a prosecutor say, "We have forensic proof," ask yourself, is it really proof? Or just a guess dressed up as science? Because if the system is willing to send an innocent person to prison based on flawed forensic methods, what makes you think they won't do it again? Now, let's talk about something no one wants to think about. What if you were accused of a crime you didn't commit? What if the forensic evidence wasn't in your favor? Would you know what to do? Here's the first rule: never assume forensic science is perfect. If the prosecution claims they have forensic proof, demand multiple opinions. One forensic expert can say you're guilty, while another can prove the evidence is completely unreliable. And don't trust a single forensic test. DNA, fingerprints, lie detector results, they can all be wrong. You have the right to challenge forensic evidence. Use it. Because if bad science can put innocent people away, the only thing standing between you and a wrongful conviction is knowing your rights. Ask yourself, should forensic science decide someone's fate? Now I want to hear from you. Do you think forensic science should have the power to send someone to prison, or even to death row? Have you ever doubted forensic evidence in a case? Let's talk about it in the comments. Because this isn't just about one case, one mistake, or one innocent person being locked away. This is about a broken system. And the more people know the truth, the harder it is for that system to keep failing. Spread the truth, like, share, and subscribe. This video is just the beginning. The justice system is filled with flaws people don't know about, and if we don't talk about them, nothing changes. So if you learned something today, if this opened your eyes to the truth about forensic science, hit the like button. It tells YouTube that this is an important conversation. And if you want to be part of exposing injustice, revealing hidden truths, and pushing for real change, make sure you subscribe. Because trust me, this isn't the last time we'll uncover something shocking. The system is broken. Now, what are we going to do about it?